I am very sorry, guys. Let's go back to this one. Okay, so we'll talk about assumptions of parametric scale. When we say parametric scale, yun yung if ang data natin is normally distributed or not normally distributed. Going back earlier, I told you that there are two ways to check for the normality of data. We have here the QQ plot or the quantile plot using a graph, and the other one is this one, the chaperone link. When we say chaperone link, you have to use you have to use the JASP software for you to get or for you to be able to check the normality of your data. So you would be able to do the quantile plot and also the other one, which is the chaperone link, chaperone wheel. So anong gamit ng chaperone wheel, sir? So when we say chaperone wheel, it's kind of the opposite of correlation or interpreting correlational research or the p-value in correlation research. Because the null hypothesis in chaperone wheel is that data is normally distributed. So if the p-value is greater than 0.05, what you need to do is to accept the data or to accept the null. Because if mas higher ang p-value natin, that means the more normally distributed ang data. Again, if high ang ating if high ang p-value ng chaperone wheel, that means the more pod nga mas normally distributed ang data. So if it's greater than 0.05, we have to accept the null hypothesis because same man sila ng sinasabi. Normally the data is normally distributed. Okay, the other p-value is less. If the p-value is less than 0.05, we have to reject the null hypothesis because the lesser the p-value for chaperone wheel, the more hindi normally distributed ang data natin. So, the null hypothesis will be rejected because ang sabi ni null, normally distributed daw ang data natin. But if lower than 0.05 siya, that means hindi normally distributed ang data. Let's say, for example, this one. Ang p-value ng chaperone wheel natin is 0.01. So, anong ibig sabihin yan, sir? Since it's lesser than 0.05, we have to reject the null hypothesis. Why? This means that our data is not normally distributed. So, ang data here na itong gamit to check the p-value of the chaperone wheel shows that our data is not normally distributed. Why? Because the p-value is lesser than 0.05. Again, ulitin ko, if the more higher ang value ng p-value for chaperone wheel, the more normally distributed ang data. But if the more lesser ang p-value ng chaperone wheel, the lesser ang chance or the more siya dili normally distributed. Again, if p-value is mas taas sa 0.05, normally distributed ang data. If the more siya mas lower, the more nga dili siya normally distributed. So we are aiming for the high. The more closer it is to 1, the higher it is. Para siyang R value. The greater the p-value, the more chance na normally distributed ang data natin. That's for the um, chaperone wheel. Again, there are two ways to check the normality of our data. It's either QQ plot or chaperone wheel. So you can do that in JAF. I'll show you. It's JASP. For it to load. So for example, you want to compare, you have this one as your data. The one. So you click on analysis and then descriptives and then column 1 and column 2. Then here, chaperone wheel. There. The chaperone wheel p-value is 0.92. That means our data is more likely normally distributed because it is higher than 0.05. For column 2 naman, it is 0.685. That means it is still normally distributed because it's still higher than 0.05. That's it. So, moving on, let's talk about the steps in conducting mixed method research. First one is you have to determine if a mixed method study is feasible. So, given the time constraint that we have, this is one thing that we really have to look on, to look out for. We have to assess whether our study is something that can be carried out given the time constraint that we have. Next is identify a rationality for a mixing method. We do not just simply mix the data, or we do not just simply mix the quantitative and qualitative research. There has to be an underlying reason why we are mixing it. Probably because our first collected data is not enough to give us to answer the research questions, or could be we just want to get an alternative perspective. So there has to be an underlying reason why you are using mixed method. And this is something that you can also specify in your title proposals or in your paper in general. Next is identify a data collection strategy. Earlier, I believe from the previous discussions that we had, we talked about the different sampling techniques, and you have to also specify which sampling techniques you will be using. And for the quantitative and qualitative phase, you have to be as detailed as much as possible for us to be able to know if your study could really be carried out or if it's something that you could really be that you could really do. So again, you have to identify a data collection strategy. Could it be through interview or through Google Forms and things like that? Next is you have to develop quantitative and qualitative mixed method questions. So I believe you have been doing this one, and some revisions have been already made, and we hope that we're able to follow those suggestions and recommendations as well. So you have to make sure that your research questions must have a quantitative nature and qualitative nature because again, this is a mixed method research. Next is collect quantitative and qualitative data. So you have to also specify on the quantitative and qualitative phase how you will be collecting the data. May it be through phone interview or could it be through Google Forms and other. Next is analyze data separately, concurrently, or both. That's why I want you to specify the research design in your study sa title mismo. For us to know when is the data going to be analyzed after ba ng collection ng quantity or right after mo collect ang lahat ng data. When we say convergent, i-collect mo lahat muna ng data bago ka mag-analyze. When we say sequential, i-collect mo muna yung isa, for example, quantitative, and then i-analyze mo siya, and then after mag-analyze, saka ka mag-proceed sa isa. Pag convergent kasi, collect mo lahat muna, and then after collecting everything, you conduct the analysis. So you have to decide, you have to specify in your title the design that you will be using. Lastly, you have to write the report as one or two-phase study or multiple stage study. So you have to specify ano talaga ang procedure na gagawin nyo based on the design and also the approach that you were using. So when can we say that a research or a mixed method study is high quality? First one is it uses the words mixed method. With the title, maybe in your introduction, you can use mixed method as a term. First to know that mixed methods are done in research. Next, conveys details about data collection and analysis of both quantitative and qualitative data. Of course, you have to think about quantitative and qualitative data because this is a mixed method. I believe this one is self-explanatory. Next is you have to integrate qualitative and quantitative data. That's why we are encouraging you that in your research question, there has to be a question that can be answered by mainly words, mainly using words. There are also questions that can be answered through using numbers. So my quantity and then the value. Next, you have to specify the design. If you are going to ask me how, diba, most of you are sending me messages or sending us messages, and we are giving you a suggestion na, oh, sige, ibutang specifying design. Because that's also one of the criteria for us to know if the method study is high quality or not. If the study or if the title specifies the design used in a study, that means your research study or research mixed method study is high quality. Lastly, use empirical studies and data, meaning you don't only rely on quantitative data or qualitative data, but serve both. Because again, this is mixed method. I believe that is everything. If you have any questions, please let us know, and we will be more than happy to help you. Bye, and thanks.